If you've never before heard of the National Vaccine Court, you're hardly alone. It sits inconspicuously a few hundred yards from the White House and stands as a model of effective public policy, balancing the societal good of widespread vaccination with rare individual harm. Founded in the 1980s, the court has, with little fanfare, paid out billions of dollars to Americans who have claimed injury after getting a vaccine. Today, with vaccine skepticism rising and given voice in the highest ranks of government, we wondered, can this singular court block out the noise, withstand the political winds, and stay true to its mission?
The story will continue in a moment.
You ready to go?
Yeah.
All right, say go.
Go.
Jacob Thompson is 13 years old.
Here we go.
He loves airplanes, swimming, and Chick-fil-A. But Jacob can speak only a handful of words and needs help walking more than a few yards. Jacob was born in St. Louis on New Year's Eve 2011, rounding out a family of 4 with sister Mei Lee and parents John and Wally. He a pilot for FedEx, she a recent immigrant from China.
We had this perfectly normal, happy little baby. He would be able to jump up and down on my wife's lap and very alert, recognized who mom and dad was.
At his 6-month checkup, Jacob received a combination shot that included the recommended childhood vaccinations against diphtheria, tetanus, and pertussis, or DTaP, all deemed safe and effective in clinical trials. Hours later, Jacob began to seize. Doctors hoped it was a one-time reaction. It wasn't.
Within, I'd say 6 months or less, he didn't know that we were mom and dad anymore, and he was slithering on the floor like a snake.
Unrecognizable from the child you knew.
Yeah.
By age 2, Jacob could suffer up to 700 seizures in one day. He was diagnosed with a rare and severe form of epilepsy.
Is he getting blue?
The Thompsons became increasingly convinced that his condition could be traced back to his 6-month vaccinations, and they began to seek accountability. They took their case to attorney Renee Gentry.
That's circumstantial evidence because it's not direct evidence.
She's a leading vaccine injury litigator and director of the Vaccine Injury Litigation Clinic at George Washington University Law School in Washington, D.C.
Perfect. I represent both vaccine-injured children and adults. All of my clients are vaccinated. Most of them will start the conversation by saying, I'm not anti-vax.
Why do you think they need to tell you right off the bat they're not anti-vax, but?
There's a lot of public pressure when you say that you have a vaccine injury, that people think you're some kind of a crazy person or you're out there. And also because most people have never heard of a vaccine injury. They're rare.
So rare that, while hard to quantify precisely, the chances of serious vaccine injury have been likened to lottery odds, lightning strikes. Bear in mind, in total, global immunization has saved an estimated 154 million lives, 6 lives each minute. But when an injury does occur, families can come to vaccine court, seen in this informational video. Part of the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, the court was established in response to a public health scare in the 1980s.
The health of millions of children may be at stake because...
When families of injured children went to civil court and successfully sued the manufacturers of the DTP vaccine, an older version of DTaP, it caused all but one of those drug companies to pull out of the market, resulting in vaccine shortages. Congress acted, crafting a bipartisan bill that partially shielded drug manufacturers from liability so they would continue to develop life-saving vaccines. And at the same time, Congress acknowledged that vaccines can cause injury. As bill sponsor Senator Ted Kennedy described, when children are, quote, the victims of an appropriate and rational national policy, a compassionate government will assist them in their hour of need.
It was hailed as such a unique accomplishment back in the day because you had these disparate groups. You had the parents of vaccine-injured children together in the room with the manufacturers. And everybody agreed that this was the best case scenario.
Is that fair to the public? They think they have an injury caused by a vaccine, but they can't sue the vaccine manufacturer directly.
You can still opt out of this program and sue a manufacturer. You have to just start in this program. But it's a lower burden of proof in our program, so it's an easier thing for vaccine-injured people to get compensation.
Drug companies are not only not being sued, they're not part of the proceedings. Vaccine court is a no-fault court. meaning in cases like Jacob Thompson's, negligence does not need to be proven, just that the vaccine more likely than not caused the injury. Vaccine court is not your typical court. There's no jury. Cases are decided in front of one of 8 judges called special masters. Since the program began in the late 80s, 12,000 Americans have received almost $5 billion in payouts. There are no financial windfalls for lawyers. The court pays them by the hour. Where does all this money come from? A 75-cent tax imposed on recommended childhood vaccines goes into a trust fund earmarked for vaccine injury compensation. In July, the Thompsons received a judgment of $2.1 million based on the special master's ruling that it was more probable than not that Jacob's 6-month vaccinations aggravated an underlying genetic mutation. Jacob also received a lifetime annuity to cover his future care. Is there any doubt that the vaccine caused Jacob's injury?
We can't ever prove scientific certainty on it.
Does that not mean, though, that some cases are being compensated when, in fact, the science might not support it?
Sure, and that's what Congress intended. There's very clear indication that said it would be better to compensate somebody that wasn't injured than to miss somebody who was.
How do you feel about that?
I think that's fine. While vaccines are critically important public health tools, they're not magic. You know, you can have an allergic reaction to aspirin. So it's a lot of different factors come into play to have a person be injured by a vaccine. Their genetics, their immune system. That's why the no-fault part is critical. The vaccine caused it, but there's no bad actor in this case.
The program is structured around a vaccine injury table, basically a conversion chart of vaccines and eligible injuries. If your child, for instance, got a rubella vaccine and developed chronic arthritis, within 7 and 42 days, you may be eligible for damages. The most common compensation is for shoulder injuries suffered from a misplaced injection. You can file for an injury not on the table. Overall, half of all claims have been dismissed. Today, vaccines on the table have jumped from the original 6 to 16, including the annual flu shot, though notably not COVID. As for the eligible injuries, autism is not one of them. That decision did not come easily, as retired special masters Denise Vowell and George Hastings explained. There's been a lot of talk lately about a possible link between vaccines and autism. This has been litigated and decided in your court 15 years ago.
You know, I spent many years of my life almost full time looking at that issue.
In the early 2000s, cases alleging vaccinations caused autism flooded the court. Vowell, Hastings, and a third special master oversaw what was a class action of sorts, a vaccine court proceeding that spanned almost a decade, incorporating testimony from dozens of medical experts and hundreds of scientific articles. What did you ultimately conclude?
Ultimately concluded there simply was not the evidence. I hoped there would be.
Why?
Because the parents of children with autism go through so much.
But Vowell said she could not decide cases based on sentiment.
I had to apply the law, and the law was that if there is a preponderance of evidence of vaccine causation, I rule for them. If there isn't, I rule against them.
All 3 special masters concluded there was no link between vaccines and autism. On appeal, 8 additional federal judges unanimously upheld the vaccine court decisions. This has not been persuasive to Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
After 30 years of steady rises in autism rates, I don't know we know the answer to that. We should know the answer.
We wanted to know RFK Jr.'s views about vaccine court, a court his uncle championed, because today, as Secretary of Health and Human Services, he is imbued with the authority to add or redefine injuries on the vaccine table. He declined our request for an on-camera interview, but said via email that yes, he would like to expand the table, which he hopes will create an easier path to compensation. In particular, he wants to broaden definitions for seizures and encephalopathy, 2 neurological conditions that can be associated with autism. Although the original intent was idealistic, compassionate, and sensible, the court, RFK Jr. told us, has become a disaster for the families of injured children. Its effective function is delay, denial, and systematic cruelty.
Yeah, right there.
Vaccine court delays are something Ryan Farrell knows only too well. Husband to Angela and father of 3, Ryan worked as a lineman for a Boston area power company, hanging electrical wires 100 feet high. On the job in 2017, Ryan cut his hand on rusty metal and got a tetanus shot. A few days later, the pain started.
I felt like my back was just like being stabbed.
He would take a shower. He was like, I feel like there's razor blades hitting my skin.
Over the next few years, Ryan was hospitalized multiple times. Doctors diagnosed him with a rare autoimmune disease.
I didn't want to live for a long time, That's how I felt.
When did you make the link that I had this vaccine, maybe there's some correlation here?
I made the correlation.
Like most Americans, Angela Farrell had never heard of vaccine court, but she stumbled upon it online and found a lawyer. They filed a case in 2019. And only in July did the special master rule. The tetanus shot, more likely than not, led to Ryan's illness.
Do you feel like you were treated with compassion?
The special master was kind to me and my family when we were in the courtroom.
Court was intended to compensate people for vaccine injuries. I want to quote this: quickly, easily, and with certainty and generosity.
That couldn't be further from the truth.
What do you mean?
I feel like they made it way too long.
Ryan remains unable to work. 6 years in, the court has yet to determine his damages. The court acknowledges the delays. Citing a backlog of more than 3,000 cases, its chief special master has, in documents obtained by 60 Minutes, asked Congress for more resources 4 years running, saying it becomes more difficult each year to resolve the huge number of case filings in the expedient fashion they deserve. Congress has yet to act. Our reporting suggests that this inaction is in part because vaccination has become such a loaded, heavily politicized issue that legislators are reluctant to wade in. The Thompsons are not invested in the heavily charged vaccine debate. They're invested in their son, Jacob, an anguishing exception harmed by what's otherwise a public health force of good.
I do wonder if people aren't going to hear your story and be terrified of giving their kids vaccinations.
We're definitely not anti-vaxxers. We think, vaccines are great. They've done a lot to help people. But I think that parents need to know what can happen.
If what you care about are vaccine-injured people and them being compensated, then you want this court to work, and you want this court to be here.
We have this program that incentivizes the manufacturing of vaccines, but also acknowledges that in some rare cases, there are injuries and damages.
Right. It's bipartisan. It takes everyone's views into account, and everybody compromises, which is a dirty word now, but that's the goal of it. And it's helped these people. Jacob will be taken care of for the rest of his life because of this program.